So hello everyone, I'm Seals. I work at the ABC as a data engineer. I haven't used Ruby professionally in about 12 months, but it is still second in my heart after SQL. Oh, and this is me with Big Ted and Little Ted, which is pretty exciting. I nearly cried. Yes, we're moving. So why am I here? I'm here because of the kindness of Sim and Adam. And also because Adam put an issue in GitHub with a suggestion for a talk. It's a great place to go if you need an idea for a talk, if you want to request a talk. And his requested talk was getting started with Cursor and comparing it to GitHub Copilot in I'm doing it in VS Code. So we're going to take a little look at how to get set up and what Cursor was like to use and how it compares to Copilot. And we're going to do that by asking them both to build a data tool for me. But before we get to that, I'm going to address one quick question because I can. How do I feel about AI? So this is a big question. From a work point of view, I feel a certain inevitability that we'll all be working on AI at some point. I find AI and ML really fascinating, but I'm actually more interested in getting the data right for it than actually doing the models and working everything out itself. Turns out that's quite handy because everyone's just realized that if you have ML and you have bad data, you're going to get bad results. That said, there are quite a few things that make me feel a little bit squiffy about AI, including things like energy consumption or water consumption or stealing or compounding existing biases or riding roughshod over the social contract. In some respects, using AI feels like, or AI in general, feels like when you're sitting in peak hour on Royal Parade and someone in a hotted up Camry jumps into the tram lane, which is free of cars, and they belt it at 80 up to Sydney Road. What they're doing is illegal on several counts. The only reason it works is because everybody else is following the rules and trusting their fellow drivers to do the right thing. And things with AI that spring to mind that kind of give me this feeling are things like scraping all of Reddit and archive of their own without asking for language. Water usage. I don't think we should be flushing our toilets with drinkable water. I really don't think we should be using drinkable water to cool data centers for AI to run. Trying to get rid of copyright laws, I think, is something that is not great, which people running large language models are trying to do. So given all of this, I'll make one final observation before we start talking about Cursor. And that is, if I'm going to use AI to write code, I'm going to apply my philosophy of, is this letting me do dumb shit faster? So when I start using AI, do I have a plan? Have I spent some time thinking about what I want to achieve? Am I being mindful, or am I just swatting at my favorite shiny fish toy, which they don't make anymore, which is a tragedy, with no thoughts, but just speed? And with that thought in mind, we'll move on to the Cursor part of the talk. So what is Cursor? Cursor styles itself as the AI editor. So it's a text editor that we can write code in, and it has a bunch of AI models built into it. How do we set up Cursor? It took 3 steps. Step 1, install Cursor. I used Brew because it makes me feel like a real developer. Step 2, add a Git repo. You don't have to do this, but I wanted to do it to keep track of what I was doing. And foreshadowing, it came in handy later. The final step was just Cursor dot. That gave you a series of setup screens with settings you can adjust. You could import all your extensions in from VS Code to make it feel as familiar as possible. I started from scratch, not because I'm hardcore, but because my VS Code has Copilot in it, and I didn't want the AI models getting muddled. There was also an option to share everything that you do with Cursor, or to keep that private and to yourself. So once you had that out of the way, you picked which model you wanted to use, and then you gave it a prompt for what you wanted to do. So we're working on a data mesh at ABC, and part of that involves writing lots of schemas, and sometimes I don't want to do that much writing. So I'd like a tool that does it for me. I would also like a tool that checks to make sure that any data is valid against that schema, which I put into this query. And on reflection, I asked it to do too many things at once, and I should have planned it out first and like fed it in bit by bit. There were a few more steps than that, and it like saves your whole history of all the questions you've asked and the answers it's given you and the code it's given you, and I can show that to you after if you're super interested in it. But it in a really short amount of time, it had something set up for me, told me to start Rails server, and it worked. I believe the first words out of my mouth were holy shitballs, because it was so fast and so exciting, and it just worked. I made it a little sample CSV file with some different data types in each column to check, and it gave me back a little schema, which when I look at this now, it feels like a giveaway that has just taken the answers from the name of the columns, but it did actually work it, like it put in a little bit of code to work out what data types were in each column. So the first 30 minutes or so of using Cursor, they were filled with a kind of fluttering delight, and I felt like I was collaborating with someone, and it was a really amazing experience. It made me think that we're going to have to come up with a new word for like our relationships with LLM models. So like we've got parasocial relationships with celebrities. We're going to need some word for how we interact with LLMs, maybe anthropomorphic relationships. I found myself thinking about Cursor and thinking about Claude and trying to work out how I could spend more time writing code with them. And so like, I think it's clear that I was pretty impressed with Cursor, and I would quite happily have just stayed with it and kept working on it. But part of this talk is comparing it to Copilot. So I'm tolerantly fond of Copilot. I mostly use it as an autocomplete. Like you want to change something to something else and like you tell it what you want and it fills it out for you. I like that. I put the same question to Copilot as I did to Cursor, and you can see down the bottom here, it used a reference with the GPT advice, because I put the same question. The talk was going to be slightly different, and I put the same question to ChatGPT and ended up putting it in here to help Copilot. I loathe ChatGPT, mostly because I most often encounter it when I've told someone they can't do something in SQL, and they come back to me and go, but ChatGPT says, and ChatGPT is always wrong. But we have this prompt, and we got something. We got an app running. You can see it. It did not work at all. I fought with Copilot for a while trying to get it to do something, but I gave up and went back to Cursor. But I didn't go back to Cursor right away. And when I came back, I was like, okay, it works, but can we make it look nicer? Because so this was like the list of the data sets that I'd uploaded. This was how you upload a new data set. I should also add that I'm not a front end person at all. I'm with the data. Apologies to Jeff if you're ever watching this about the front end you're about to see. And this is what the first 10 lines of what I've uploaded, the schema it gives me, and the option to download either if you want to for some reason. So with this, working with Claude and Cursor, where I had felt so giddy with delight about working with them, could I make it look nicer? No. And in fact, Cursor got a bit snippy. It would also be helpful if you could provide me more specific details about how you'd like the information to be arranged. And I got a bit snarky back. I mean, funnily enough, this is a little bit how I would like to respond sometimes when someone is like, I want a dashboard. And I'm like, okay, what data? And they're like, I want a dashboard. I'm like, no, you have to tell me what data. But we don't respond like this to people because otherwise they respond, change it back the way it was. This is worse. And it was terrible. Like we tried to make changes from what I just showed you. There were huge black objects in the way. No, terrible. So we changed it back to what I just showed you. And I couldn't work out what was going on. I had this like growing love in my heart for Cursor, and now we were fighting and I couldn't get it to do anything. It wasn't as bad as Copilot, but like I'd lost that kind of initial delight. Was it because the code had now got too complicated? Had we gone past what Cursor could do? Foreshadowing. I went at this point to write the talk, and I thought I'd give more information about Cursor and how much it costs. And I noticed here, free includes a 2-week trial of Pro. And it was after the 2-week trial had ended. And did it work after that? Well, after I've paid my money, my $20, my 20 US dollars? Yes, it did. We were back in business. I'm going to do a little aside. Usually when I'm doing subscriptions, I subscribe and immediately unsubscribe because I figure if I want it again, I will pay. And if I don't, I'll probably forget about it. And like, it will just run and I won't remember until like my credit card expires. So I always turn it off again immediately. And I got an email straight away from the CEO of Cursor saying, is everything all right? Can we give you a refund? Can you give us feedback on like what was good and what was bad? And I haven't replied yet, but I might, because like I appreciate this. They care. It feels like, even though it's just an automatic, yeah. So what changed after I paid? Cursor was nice to me again. It stopped being so snippy. It also started to work again. Like I tried to ask it to do front-end changes. I'm so out of my depth, and it started giving me stuff that like looked better. There were also changes in me after I'd paid for Cursor. I got way more conservative with the questions I was asking it. I used the free models that they offered if it was for something simple. I also, up until this point, I had just let Cursor do its thing and I hadn't intervened at all because I was like, we'll just see what it can build on its own. So now when it ran into problems, I would like jump in and fix them myself rather than go through the like, here's the error, how do you fix it process with Cursor. This slide. So I also put in harder data for it to work out, and it did it beautifully. And I have a note here saying show them, because I want to show you Cursor, but I feel nervous about like live things. So if I can grab it and move it up. Oh, Cursor won't let me. Okay, so here we have Cursor. And you can see here, I've asked it questions. I couldn't get the delete working. But what I wanted to show you was it's like giving you some code, and it's got like, there's other stuff in here, and then there's a bit down the bottom, and all you need to do is click apply, and then it puts it right in for you in the right spot. You don't have to do anything. You don't have to click to the right file. You can just click this to get to the right file if you're not there. And then you have to press accept, which you can do, right? Like you just could go clicky, clicky, clicky down here, or you can accept or reject it up here. This was a step. It was like a diagnostic step to work out why it wasn't deleting things. So we don't actually need it anymore, but like it's just an example of how easy it was. And then you can also, where's my, oh no, I'm lost. You can also see it looks a little better. Cursor came through for me. You can see the data sets now, they're a little easier to read than the like just single lines of text that we had before. And when you want to put in a new data set, it's a bit easier to see which button you need to press. It's a bit easier to do all of that. Wait, getting back to, nothing went wrong. Some final thoughts on Cursor. The main takeaway is that it's easy. It's easy to switch between the models. It's easy to see usage. This once I'd paid, it's got a whole bunch of stuff in there to keep track of how many queries you've made. Yeah, it was easy. While I was working on this, I was obviously looking up a lot of stuff, and the internet started suggesting things. And I saw something saying that Qwen 2.5 Coda 7b was far superior to Cursor. It works way better. And I was like, okay, I'll have a look. And there's a Git repo with instructions on how to set it up. You need to run some Python. It looks fairly like straightforward to do, but Cursor is so much more accessible, and there's so little friction. in using it. Like the setup was so simple, getting started was so simple. You just have to click some stuff. You don't even have to copy paste yourself. You just click where it's giving you the answer. Yeah, so I will have a play with this Quen 2.5 Coda 7B, but yeah, cursor, incredibly easy to use. So did it work? Yes, it did work. I did try and take another step and build the validator part of it, but that tanked the generator and the generator stopped working altogether. I'm not sure why, but that was why GitHub came in handy, because I'm sure I could have unpicked it all with cursor and gone back, but it was easier just to jump back a couple of commits to where it did work. And as well as being easy, cursor was really fun to use once you'd paid for it. So will I keep using cursor? Maybe. Probably I've paid for a month now. I will probably keep using it for at least that month. But I will try and do it in a considered way and always checking in with myself if I'm being sensible and productive, and try and weigh up the costs and make sure that it is not just letting me do dumb shit faster. Sorry, Mum. This is a slide with some nature in Melbourne. And I'm going to finish up with cat tax, because Toby, who some of you know, his advice on my first tech talk was that you always have to supply cat tax. Thank you. Any questions? Does anyone have any? Yeah.
I have a question. You show that you can select different models at the start. GPT Mini, and there was like O1 or something. Is it O Llama, or what's your experience with those models, and can you put custom models as well?
Oh, I don't know if you can put custom models, but I did find, oh, there's a new Claude model. There you go. That's since a day ago.
Yeah.
I mainly switched between Claude and I think O1 Mini. There's two free ones.
One is O Llama, right?
No, I don't know.
You don't have to pay for it, right?
No, so if you're using it on the free level, you get that 2 giddy weeks of Pro, and then you get the there's 2 small models, probably those 2 mini models for free. Nick.
So obviously this seems like it's like an impressive demonstration. What do you think this will look like in sort of 10 years?
Nick, what do I think this will look like in 10 years' time? In 10 years' time, we'll have chips embedded in our brain, and we will just think of what we want, and Claude will take care of it for us. It will require very structured thinking.
Meditation may help.
Yeah, meditation may help. Weekly at one thing.
Answer that question based on your comment about anthropomorphizing AI.
Mm.
It sounds like a good plot for our next AI movie.
Ooh.
Claude versus
That's a great idea.
I need a breath. But I guess my serious question is how, this is perhaps just a rephrasing, but do you think this will be significantly disruptive to our industry over the next 10 years?
One of the things so I do loathe ChatGPT, but I do also see its value. And one of the things with it is, like, if you know enough, it's really helpful. If you don't know enough, it will lead you astray. And if you know heaps, you'll just be like, why are you saying this to me? So I feel like it will help with a lot of middle band of stuff. And like, say you're a data engineer and you're really skilled in Python and SQL, but you need to like do some JS for some reason, you can hop in and it will help you out, and it will be enough. I don't think it's taking anyone's jobs. I think there still has to be lots of knowledge about how to build a good program. Like what I've done here, super fun, super simple, would in no way come close to doing what we need to do at the ABC with our data contracts. So yeah, it will hopefully remove boring stuff, but not take away the requirement to have wonderful software developers and data engineers in the world.
To draw an analogy from computers replace computers. If you get
Oh yeah, exactly that. It changes the game a little bit. Ooh, there's a chat question. Oh, it's just Mark saying hello. How do I get rid of chat? Okay, great. Oh, wait, how do I? So I only used two. I used the Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which is ticked at the moment, and one of the minis. I was so taken with Claude, I didn't look anywhere else. not that I've developed a relationship in my mind with Claude at all. They shouldn't name them. It's not right. So yeah, I should try a few more of the other ones, but Claude was so useful on its own that I didn't try anything else. Any more questions? Okay, thank you very much. Oh, wait. Probably not. I'll probably I'm going to do a similar talk for the Elixir meetup. And when it gets closer to that, I'll pay for it again. And yeah. I'm going to say yes, because I feel like it should. VS Code you can use Vim in VS Code. Yeah, you can do anything. Wait, I'll, this is my VS Code. It's basically identical, like look, feel, everything. Like I got confused sometimes. So yeah, it should have Vim.
So do you pay separate for Cursor and separate for your models you want to use it?
You pay Cursor and then you use any of the models that they've got on offer.
Right. So you don't have to pay GPT or Claude for it.
So I don't think, is GPT in there? You don't have to pay Claude, you just pay Cursor.
Right.
Yeah. I really like it. Okay, I'm gonna hang up.
It's just for Claude, nothing else.
It's just like we're good friends now.